Going to get Senator Washington in her seat, and then we're going to proceed with our voting. That was good. That's good. We like that. That was time well spent. Okay, we're going to start, Stacy, with Senate Bill 16. Let's go start with SB 16. Okay.
Senate Bill 16, Election Law, Campaign Finance, Draft Committees, and Exploratory Committees. This bill establishes draft committees and exploratory committees in the state campaign finance law. 1, by defining them. 2, by making them subject to provisions that apply to political committees, but establishing that a donation to a draft committee or exploratory committee is not subject to any limits. And 3rd, by establishing additional requirements and limitations. There are no amendments and there was no opposition.
Okay, Senator Kagan, do you have anything to add or any questions?
Yep, unanimously last year.
Okay,
Move favorable.
We got a motion favorable from Senator Kagan. Is there a second? Yeah. Senator Watson. Okay, guess this is identical to the bill we passed last year. Okay, all in favor, say aye on Senate Bill 16. All opposed? Seeing none, that bill carries unanimously. Stacy, Senate Bill 115.
Senate Bill 115, Election Law, Recounts Procedures. This emergency bill requires a petitioner for a recount to select the method for conducting the recount from among specified methods. The bill also requires a local board of election to preserve and store certain voter verifiable paper records together with their corresponding duplicate ballots. And 2, in a manual recount, count the duplicate ballot after review of the voter verifiable paper record. There are no amendments and there was no opposition at the hearing.
Okay, discussion, questions? Yes, Senator Carrozza.
Yeah, I did have a question. I didn't ask it in the hearing, but then went back and was reviewing and saw that we had that information letter from our local elected officials. And so, and I was not able to contact mine before this vote. So I wanted to check about that information letter.
Senator Brooks did ask about the letter during the hearing, and I made clear that this was a new legislative chair, and past chairs who are more seasoned with more experience send the draft testimony around to election leaders around the state. There were factual inaccuracies, a number of factual inaccuracies that were a little bit shocking. And so I addressed some of those, but I'm happy to answer specifics if you like.
It wasn't, your response was on another bill where they had an information letter. This is SB 115, where, because I made a note that there were no questions, and that prompted me to go back and look at the information letter. So I remember your response, but it was to another bill.
You know what? You are totally right. I'm just trying to pull out the fiscal note to Justin disappear. So he talked about extensive training required, which is inaccurate. They're already doing this. He talked about a significant increase in manual labor required, which is also not valid. LBEs may not be able to comply with within the time frame. They're already doing it. This is really about ensuring accuracy. And I held up the vote at home ballot versus the manual duplication that are all being done now. The most important thing in this year's version is making sure that these are stored together. So in case of a recount, or in case of a very, 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 very rare difference between the ballot that the voter cast and the one that was duplicated manually by bipartisan teams, that there would be accountability and that information would be available. So that is what I was talking about. And frankly, the new Mayo person really just didn't have that factual information.
Okay.
Additional questions for sponsor, for Stacy?
And sorry, I just put my hands on the fiscal note. State effect not expected to materially affect state finances. Local effect not expected to materially affect local government finances. This is really A, they're doing it, and B, it's what they should be doing, and it's important but modest.
Okay, do people feel like they have sufficient information to take a vote? Okay, is there a motion?
Move favorable.
Is there a second? Second from Sarah Augustine. Okay, discussion? There are no amendments, right? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, because there was just some questions, why don't we just do a quick roll call instead of the hand thing? Okay, so Lamoria, why don't we take a roll call?
Senator Kagan,
Aye.
Senator Augustine. Yes. Senator Gallion.
Yes.
Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Lewis Young.
Yes.
Senator Brooke.
Yeah.
Senator Carozza.
Yes.
Senator Hester.
Yes.
Senator Washington.
Yes.
Senator Simoneer.
Yes.
And Senator Feldman.
Yes. Okay,
Eight members, zero.
that bill carries unanimously. We're gonna next go to Senate Bill 150, and that's gonna be Alexis.
Senate Bill 150, State Government Office of Legislative Audits, Performance Audits. This bill increases from 4 years to 6 years the requirement for the Office of Legislative Audits to conduct a performance audit of the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City, and from 3 years to 6 years for the same requirement to conduct a performance audit, specifically for the Board of License Commissioners for Prince George's County. There was no opposition and there are no amendments to the bill.
Okay, any questions for council? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion on Senate Bill 150? Okay, Senator Washington from Baltimore City and Baltimore County moves favorable. Second?
Second.
Second from Senator Watson. Discussion? All in favor, Senate Bill 150, raise your hand. All opposed? Bill carries unanimously. We will next move to Senate Bill 180. And we're going to go to Stacy to describe the bill.
Senate Bill 180, Public and Non-Public Schools, Auto-Injectable Epinephrine and Bronchodilators, Use, Availability, Training, and Policies. This bill requires each local board of education to establish a policy for public schools to authorize the school nurse and other school personnel to administer a bronchodilator to a student who is first, determined by an individual with specified training to have asthma, second, experiencing asthma-related symptoms, or 3, is perceived to be in respiratory distress. A bronchodilator may be administered to such a student regardless of whether the student has been diagnosed with asthma or reactive airway disease or has been prescribed a bronchodilator by a licensed healthcare practitioner. However, a bronchodilator may not be administered to a pre-kindergarten student without a prescription as specified. The policy must include other specified elements, and the bill authorizes each non-public school to establish a policy that meets similar requirements. The bill also makes parallel changes to existing requirements for each local Board of Education's epinephrine use policy. There are no amendments right now, but there was some opposition at the hearing.
Yeah, I'm going to yield to Senator Hester. We've had some back and forth with the House on this, but Senator Hester, you want to, so I'd like to get a conversation going about this bill. We will probably hold the bill, but I also think it'd be useful just to get a conversation moving on this one. Senator Hester?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to start by making sure that everybody saw the memo that we sent and the numerous attachments. Basically, we're trying to answer some of the points that were raised during the hearing. And so we attach proof of the policy statement, which affirms that the National Association of School Nurses endorses this best practice legislation. The second thing that was in that memo is several pieces of testimony and articles showing that there's zero adverse outcomes associated with this policy in other states, and currently 18 states have stock-albuterol laws. And the third piece was that just going back and forth, that the gold standard treatment for respiratory distress really is bronchodilators. And there was a couple different things that we included, including the 2020 NIH guidelines, which do not include epinephrine as a suggested treatment for asthma. So those, you all should have copies of that. I'm happy to share it again. That said, I did ask council to look at the opposition submitted by MDH, and I think Stacy may have some suggestions.
So yes, so MDH had 2 particular points of view that I think they objected to in the bill. And the first was that as currently written, the MDH says that it would authorize unlicensed school personnel to make clinical decisions about whether to administer a bronchodilator or epinephrine to a student in potentially life-threatening situation. I think that's kind of the point of the bill, is that these are emergency situations, and with some training, these students aren't left to just call 911, but to administer a medication to give them an opportunity to get to the hospital. I think that's number one. Number two is that the epinephrine law has been in place for quite a while, and the way the bronchodilator bill is written right now, it parallels the provisions of the EpiPen law. So and secondly, their objection is that the bill as drafted does not require a student with respiratory symptoms to have a diagnosis of asthma or a prescription, or in order to receive treatment with the stock bronchodilator. And it allows for the ongoing administration of a bronchodilator to a student who may be suspected of having asthma, but hasn't been evaluated by a licensed healthcare provider. That's a different interpretation. As read, I think people can disagree as to whether that's a sufficient, it's an actual interpretation of what is in this bill. But saying that, the way the training is written in here, it talks about procedures for emergency administration of a bronchodilator, not for ongoing treatment by a person who doesn't have that. So Senator Hester and I were talking about some changes that could possibly be made to further clarify that ongoing treatment is not the goal here, but emergency administration of the bronchodilators only. So as the bill is also written, parents must be notified once an administration has been made, and a form has to be filled out. This language could possibly also alleviate some of the administrative burden by saying that a student who has a diagnosis of asthma and is using a bronchodilator, they would not have to fill out a form every time they go down to the nurse because they have a prescription and they're using that. But they would have to fill out the form only in these emergent situations where a student who didn't have a prescription for a bronchodilator was administered this medication under these circumstances. So those are just something to think about.
Yeah, and so again, the bottom line, we're trying to address some of the MDH issues, but we also like to pass a bill that we think, is not going to run into any kind of issues over in the House. So that's why we're, trying to just get some. Any questions for Stacy, for Senator Hester, just, on this issue? Because if you recall from last year, we had some policy calls. We actually had this issue in front of the committee, sent bill over, got changed. And so we're trying to avoid a duplication of that. Senator Augustine?
Just following up, I imagine that we got this letter from the MDH, and this, what you guys are saying is kind of alternative to the amendments that I'm just for understanding, that they have put forward, because they put forward a series of potential amendments to MDH.
Before, just as a process matter, I just want, maybe this is good.
Oh,
for
maybe they didn't.
Well, here's the thing. I think this will be good for the future. So I think the Senate has had a policy of sorts, is we don't accept like department
That's right.
amendments.
My bad.
They have to recruit a senator from this committee
Yep.
to offer the amendments. So, the fact that MDH sends something into us with written testimony, they've got to persuade one of us to put it in. And to date, sponsor was not putting them in. So just,
Okay.
just put that in for process wise. But yes, what they're talking about is going to be not quite the same. That said, yes,
Okay.
Sarah, Esther.
Yeah, I was just gonna acknowledge that, last year it was the Maryland Nurses Association, that offered the amendments, and the department is echoing these. They're not exactly the same, but they're very, very similar. It basically strikes most of the bill and rewrites it. I think the fundamental policy call is, do we think that somebody can be trained to administer epinephrine versus a bronchodilator? And, actually, I've had both. I've had asthma and I've had anaphylactic shock, and I've seen it in other people. And you can be, a professional can be trained, just like the way the current law is trained somebody to administer epinephrine. This would just add, the extra little bit. It's not that hard. It's working in 18 other states.
Okay, hopefully that's helpful. Additional questions, again, for Senator Hester, for Stacy. And we've got the Vice Chair. Your light's on.
Oh, I apologize. I thought we were holding the bill, so I
We are
wasn't sure
about to,
why we were.
we are about to hold the bill, but I think this is a constructive
Okay.
discussion that'll streamline the, when we take it up next time we vote. That's just, kind of my take. Okay. Well, that said, if no other questions, I know that Senator Hester is actually going to be meeting with some of the, a couple of folks over in the House side tomorrow. So I'd move that we hold the bill and then we'll take it up next time, but I think it's good to just get it out. That said, let's move on. The bill's held. We're going to go to next to Senate Bill 196, Senator Gallion. And that is Dara.
Senate Bill 196, Soil Conservation Districts, Small Ponds Plan Review Fees. This bill authorizes a soil conservation district to recommend a fee system to a local governing body to cover the cost of the district's review of small pond plans and establishes procedures for the development and enactment of a fee system. There was one amendment. There was no opposition at the hearing. The amendment as drafted, small pond means an artificial water impoundment that is made by constructing a dam or an embankment or by excavating a pit or dugout, and exempt from a requirement to obtain a permit from the Maryland Department of the Environment to construct, repair, or modify a reservoir, dam, or waterway obstruction. The amendment alters the definition of small pond to mean a reservoir, dam, or water obstruction that is exempt from the permit requirements under section 5503B of the Environment article, which is the aforementioned exemption.
Senator Gallion, do you want to add anything here?
It's been a while since we've had this. Just to bring everybody back up. So this was brought up by an issue where with these small pond reviews, the NRCS, National Resource Conservation Services, used to do these, stopped doing them. So MDE's been doing some and it's taken a long time. So soil conservation are already authorized to recommend a fee system cover reviewing grading and sediment control plans. So this would add what they could do and do the fee structure for, and will hopefully not have to wait a year like a lot of folks are doing with MD, and streamline that.
Okay, any additional
So I'd like to move
questions? Okay, you move the amendment first?
Yes.
Okay, any second on the amendment? Okay, second for Senator Augustine. All in favor of the amendment as described by Dara, raise your hand. All opposed, the amendment carries. We have now, yes, sir?
Pardon me, there has also been an amendment request for a co-sponsor
Okay, who's the
from Senator Hester.
Senator Hester one. Okay, we have an amendment from Senator Hester to be a co-sponsor. Anybody else want to go on the bill as a co-sponsor beyond Senator Hester? Okay, we've got Senator Brooks, Senator Lewis Young. I'm sorry, Senator Watson. Anybody else? Okay, okay, all in favor of that co-sponsor amendment, raise your hand. All opposed, that co-sponsorship amendment also carries. We now have those amendments on the bill. Any motion on the bill as amended? Senator Gallion, sponsor, second, Mary Washington, Senator Mary Washington. Discussion, all in favor of the bill as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill as amended carries. That bill being Senate Bill 196. Next, going to move to Senate Bill 252. Alexis.
Senate Bill 252, Public Safety 911 Trust Fund Alterations. This emergency departmental bill authorizes funds from the local 911 fee to be used to pay public safety answering point personnel and county personnel, and prohibits money from the state 911 fee from being used to pay the same individuals. There are no amendments and there was no opposition presented at the hearing.
Okay, we've got a motion favorable from our 911 champion, the vice chair. Any second? Second, Senator Brooks. Okay, we've got a favorable motion. All in favor of the favorable motion on Senate Bill 252, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill carries unanimously. Next up, Senate Bill 274, Alexis.
Senate Bill 274, Charter Counties Comprehensive Plans Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing. This departmental bill requires a housing element in a charter county and in some code counties to include on or after January 1st, 2025 in their comprehensive plans, a fair housing assessment to ensure that the respective county is affirmatively furthering fair housing. The bill, however, does not expressly mandate that a county take any particular actions towards that goal. A charter county is required to incorporate a prior federal fair housing assessment into their comprehensive plan under the bill as well. No opposition and no amendments to this bill.
Okay, any questions for council on this bill? Okay, yes, Senator Gallion.
Clear. So I had in my notes, so the non-charter counties already are doing
Yeah,
this,
that's
and
right.
this brings the charter counties
And some
in-
code counties into alignment.
in, so everybody's the same.
That's right.
Okay.
Any further discussion, questions? Okay, is there a motion? Senator Washington favorable. Is there a second? Second from Senator Kagan. Okay, again, discussion, seeing none. All in favor of Senate Bill 274? It's clean, no amendments. Raise your hand. All opposed? That bill carries unanimously. Senate Bill 274. Next up, Senate Bill 295. Alexis.
Senate Bill 295, Department of Planning, Inventory Responsibilities. This departmental bill repeals a requirement for the Department of Planning to prepare and revise inventory list of state natural resources and facilities useful to the development of the state. No amendments to this bill and no opposition presented at the hearing.
Okay, any questions? Is there move favorable from Senator Watson, second, Senator Brooks? Okay, discussion. Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 295, raise your hand. All opposed? Senate Bill 295 carries. Next up, Senate Bill 301, Dara.
Senate Bill 301, aquaculture, placement of shellfish bags, nets, and structures on submerged aquatic vegetation extension. This departmental bill extends from June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2027, the termination date that allows an aquaculture leaseholder to place shellfish, bags, nets, or structures on submerged aquatic vegetation with specific prior written approval from the Department of Natural Resources. There was one amendment. There was no opposition at the hearing. The amendment adds a reporting requirement for the Department of Natural Resources on June 1st, 2025, and each June 1st for the next 2 years thereafter.
Okay, there's one amendment. Anybody want to move the amendment? Senator Hester, you want to move the amendment? Second? Okay, all in favor of the amendment, that one single amendment, raise your hand. All opposed, the amendment carries. We've got the bill as amended in front of us. Is there a motion? Senator Augustine? Second, Senator Kagan. Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 301 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, Senate Bill 301 carries unanimously. We next move to Senate Bill 303. Dara?
Senate Bill 303, aquaculture, definition of shellfish alteration. This departmental bill alters the definition of shellfish as it relates to an existing prohibition against importing or possessing within the state shellfish taken from waters outside the waters of the state for planting in the waters of the state without the approval of the Department of Natural Resources. There was one amendment. There was no opposition at the hearing. The amendment altered the definition of shellfish to read, shellfish includes live bivalve and bivalve shells. As written, the bill defines shellfish as live mollusks and molluscan shells.
Okay, anybody want to move that amendment, that one amendment? Okay, Senator Brooks, Senator Kagan, second. All in favor of this, that one amendment, raise your hand. All opposed, the amendment carries. Bill as amended is in front of us. Anybody want to move it? Senator Brooks, favorable motion on the bill as amended. Any discussion? Yes, Senator Carrozza.
I'm probably gonna have to vote no until I have somebody who does scallops in my district, and I probably should have talked to him before this vote. So
Okay,
I would vote no, and it might be okay, but that's why.
okay. Any further discussion, conversation? Okay, with that, we have a motion favorable as amended. We'll take a roll call in light of where Senator Carosa is coming from. So Lemuria, take the roll on Senate Bill 303.
Senator Kagan,
Aye.
Senator Augustine.
Yes.
Senator Gallion.
Yeah.
Senator Watson.
Aye.
Senator Lewis Young,
Yeah.
Senator Brooks,
Yeah.
Senator Carosa.
No.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Senator Washington,
Yes.
Senator Salmonere,
Yes.
and Senator Feldman.
Yes, that bill carries 10-1. We'll next move to our final bill of the day. And this will give us, if we pass it, 10 bills passed in this voting session. Senate Bill 310, Alexis.
Senate Bill 310, Department of Planning State Repository and Clearinghouse for Federal and State Financial and Technical Assistance. This departmental bill removes the requirement that the Maryland Department of Planning serve as a repository for information about federal and state grants, loans, and other assistance. And it requires the Department of Planning to publish assistance information on Maryland Info Portal instead of in a catalog. There was no opposition and there are no amendments.
Okay, there was no opposition, no amendments. Is there any questions? Is there a motion?
In favor.
Favorable motion from the vice chair. Is there a second from Senator Augustine? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 310, clean, no amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, 310 carries unanimously, and that does get us to 10 bills passed out of the committee today, and that concludes our work for the week. And